Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Liz, and in today's video we're doing another trash to treasure. I have some really great projects to share with you. So this first table, I've actually been looking for a table for my front entryway for probably a month or two now, and I was at a garage sale and I spotted this table and they had stripped all of the paint off of it. You could tell that it had been painted before, and it was this nice like raw wood. And I've seen this, it's really popular right now at Hobby Lobby. A lot of the pieces are raw wood, so I definitely wanted to get it. She wanted $20 for it, but ended up giving it to me for $15, which I thought was a great deal for a table. So I wanted to keep all of the raw wood, but the top of it was pretty messed up. Like it had some paint on it, it was scuffed up, and I knew I needed to do something to the top. So my plan was to keep the legs and everything natural, not do anything with them. But on the top, I wanted to add in some color, not completely cover up the wood, but distress it a little bit and add a little bit of color to disguise some of the flaws. So how I achieved that look was I came in with some green moss paint by Waverly, and all I did was I just lightly brushed the paint on the top of it. Then I came back in with a completely saturated rag that was completely wet, and I started to smear the paint and essentially wipe off a majority of the paint. I didn't want to see any brush lines, so I'm just taking the paint off. The cool thing about this method is you can keep applying paint and taking it off and using as little or as much as you want to achieve the look that you want. So I did that with the green moss. Then I came in with some silver lining paint by Waverly. That just kind of gave me a lighter look to it. From there, I decided that I needed a little bit of a darker green. So I didn't have one, so what I did was I took some brown paint and just mixed it in with that green moss color that I had, and then I added that to the piece as well. With every paint stroke that I was putting on, I was constantly pulling it off and taking the excess off with that damp rag. Once it had a chance to dry, I put it in my front entryway and I styled it with different pots and baskets I had around my house. I had this herb sign that I picked up from the Target dollar spot. So this next project, I love the way it turned out. I think it's so adorable, and when I spotted it, I knew it would make a perfect DIY. So I grabbed this stool for $6 at a thrift store, and it was kind of in rough shape. The wood was actually splitting on the bottom of it, so my husband came in and he added some brackets on the inside just to help it be more stable. That way, I mean, you can see the brackets on the inside, but I'm gonna paint over them, and that was the only way to really make it more stable. So the first thing I did was I wanted to paint the leg. So I'm gonna use silver lining by Waverly, and I did 2 coats of that paint all over the wood part of the stool. Next, I decided to wet distress. You guys know I love wet distress, but if you really want a look where the paint is just kind of pulled off and extra chippy, I think wet distress is the way to go. So I went to town on this. I got a saturated rag. Oh, and I wanted to point out that when you are wet distressing, make sure that you let your paint dry for maybe 2 hours. I know some people have asked me how long to let the paint dry. About 2 hours, and then come back in, and you just want to pull off as much paint as you want. On this piece, I pulled off quite a bit. So after you wet distress, make sure that you give your piece a chance to dry again. From there, I'm going to remove all of the old fabric from this piece. So I just took it out. It actually was in there with these nails. So I just took out all the old fabric. So I wanted to try to make this as inexpensive as possible. So the fabric that I'm gonna be using to cover it with is actually a tablecloth that I got for a couple of dollars at a thrift store. And it's a nice thick fabric and it's nice for home decor. So what I did was I just draped the tablecloth over and I moved it around and made sure it was in the spot that I wanted it to be. Once it was where I wanted it to be, then I just cut around the edge, leaving plenty of excess so that I could staple it. So then I'm going to flip the stool over so that I can staple it. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull the fabric up along the edge. You want it to be tight, but don't pull it so tight that you start getting bubbles along the bottom of the fabric. And then you're just going to use a staple gun to staple these in place. I will link below to my staple gun if you guys are interested in the one that I use. So to do the edges, it's a little bit more tricky, but it's no big deal. So what you want to do is think of it like a present. So you want to tuck your edges in, and then you're going to pull the fabric up and over. But on the edge, you want it so that it's pulled up nice and tight and straight on the edge. Just think about how it's gonna look whenever you flip it over. And so then you're just going to staple along this edge, then go ahead, do your other side, pull the fabric in, tuck it over, and staple along the edge. You may have to use more staples here just to kind of hold everything in place. And if your staples don't go in all the way, you could always come back in and hammer them in place. Once you get your side completely in place, then you can cut off the excess fabric. And then you're just going to repeat those same steps on the other side. So I really felt like this piece needed some extra trim. So I found some inexpensive trim at Hobby Lobby. It was $1.99 a yard. I used the 40% off coupon, so I bought 4 yards of it and I paid around $5 with tax. So I thought that was a pretty good deal. So what I did was I started off at the base and I hot glued around the base of it, and then I went all around the edge trying to make sure that I kept it as level as possible. Once I got to the end, I just cut it off and hot glued it in place. I'm sure you guys have seen all the stools out that have multiple layers of trim, and that was the look that I was going for. So that's why I added another layer of the trim to the top. So I just started hot gluing at the top and I did it all around the stool. So once I got that portion done, I realized that I didn't necessarily like the silver color with the golds and the beige colors in my trim. So I decided that I wanted to come in and add some additional colors that would match that better. I just continued to add paint until I felt like it matched the fabric that I used better. So don't be afraid to just kind of add to things and change it up if it's not looking the way you like. And here's a look at how the stool turned out. hope you guys enjoyed these trash to treasures. Make sure to let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. I love how both of them turned out. If you're new to my channel, make sure you click this button right here and subscribe so you don't miss out. I post 3 to 4 DIY tutorials each week. And if you'd like to watch our last DIY, I'm gonna link that right here so you can click on that one. And I'll talk to you guys in our next video. Bye.